Tell me, how goes it? Hella Greg. What the fuck?
I'm not going to say shit until I hear my theme song.
That's the best I could do.
All right, I think I got this.
You got the Oompa Loompa.
Here, I better just test it. Yep.
That's pretty smart.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 92 of 1 Million of the Serial Chillers podcast from the Super Network studio. I am here with a couple buddies, and 66.6 feet directly below us in the Super Network bunker, we have, hello, Greg. You snuck in this time. I didn't see you.
Yes.
Tell me, how goes it? Hello, Greg.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted.
If you only knew. If you only knew. Well, really, how are you, Greg? Tell me.
I'm good.
Good. Just good?
I mean, I don't know. How good should I be? I'm fantastic. I'm exquisite. If I were any better, I'd be twins and then having twice as much fun.
There we go. That's what I wanted to hear, man. That's all I've ever wanted to hear. Don't forget to follow the show anywhere you can. Facebook group, and the Instagram is all the same thing, Serial Chillers Podcast. The Twitter is @Chillers Podcast. The email address is serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. Call or text the show 1-805-666-2513. We don't get those incredibly often, so it's always nice when you get a little text from someone that's like, yo, check out this fucking brutal murder.
I like the ones that call and describe it, because then I just like put it on speakerphone and hang out for a minute and listen to somebody tell me like a gnarly story.
And everybody at work just looks at you weird.
I could give a fuck.
If you guys want some merch, check out Serial Chillers Podcast.threadless.com. If you want to get some stickers, it's at serialchillerspodcast.com in the Super Sticker store. Rate and review on everything if you would, please. And if you'd like to give to the show, just $1 goes farther than you think. Seriously, when there's like 7,000 of you? Yeah, something like that. Patreon.com/Serial Chillers Podcast. And don't forget to check out the other shit on the Super Network, which will include, by now, Death & Co. podcast, as well as the Super Simpsons Show. So, bringing back a couple guests that you guys know and you guys love. Welcome back. I'll go first, left to right. Alex, hey, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Dude. It's fucking spectacular to have you. I normally don't know this information, but somehow I stumbled upon it today. You guys were last here on episode 79. So this is 92. It's been a while. That's too long without you, I have to say.
That's a long time.
That's almost a season.
Yeah, let's bring in the last guy before we talk too much about how long they've been gone. Welcome
Last
back.
but not least.
Yeah, our good friend Joseph, or JXZXPH. It's like Joseph, but cooler. It's going to stick. It'll never go away, even if you change the name.
It's fine.
Welcome back, dude.
Hello. I didn't want to start talking until I was greeted in. It felt wrong to like just blurt. But
that means you know what you're fucking doing in my book,
I'm
dude.
a professional.
In the words of The Rock, know your role and shut your mouth.
Well, welcome back, dudes. Very wonderful to have you. Like Greg was saying, 13-episode break was too long. We need to have you 7 times a season. But fun fact, Joseph and Alex have appeared together on every season of the show now.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
And you've come separately with JP a couple times, and I think with Christy once as well.
Like a long time ago.
Yeah. So you've been on a couple, and have you ever been without Alex?
Nope.
No.
I'm
we're gonna have to get you in here once without Alex.
Pony.
So we've got the one-trick pony and the veteran here, ready to duke it out today. You guys know how the show works. Let me explain it for anybody that doesn't. Each week, I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell them the story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys can chime in on my story, and if you brought a story of your own that is true crime, dark, creepy, or otherwise mysterious, please feel free to share it. Lastly, if you have questions about the questions, make sure to ask questions because I cannot answer questions about questions if you never ask questions. Are there any questions?
There's no questions.
No, I just want to make sure my water bottle doesn't make sound.
Let's see how it goes. It was like, who are you,
picking
fucking...
up a faint bubbling sound. Are we near some water?
Was that Michael Winslow pretending to drink a fucking glass of water? That's what it sounded like.
I'll be here all week.
That's pretty good, right?
Be sure to tip your waitress.
Yeah, I was gonna say I might sample that and keep that as a water noise.
That needs to be the intro to the show. Hold on, see if my bottle makes any noise. Glick, 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 glick. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, then welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast. Ooh. All right, boys. Today's serial killer. Tell me, have you heard of Elizabeth Bathory?
I have no idea who that is.
Or Bator Ersabet?
I don't.
That one, second one probably rang a lot more of a bell to you, right? Okay, so you guys are both in the I don't know category for this. Okay, it's not a problem. It happens almost every episode. I try to pick ones that people won't know, so they sound stupid. Question number 1. In what year was Elizabeth Bathory born? Greg, Alex is looking at you, so keep a poker face tonight.
I'm only looking at you, Greg.
My poker face is as good as it's ever been. Just kind of aloof.
Yeah, that's probably wrong.
Okay, Alex says 1963. Joseph says, was it 1948?
Those are good guesses. You guys are.
Okay. 48 and 63. Elizabeth Bathory was born on a family estate in Nyírbátor Kingdom of Hungary on August 7th, 1560.
Wow.
So Joseph's going to get the 250 points, about 400 years off, but still going to get... That might be the farthest anybody has ever gotten from the actual answer and gotten the points to a question in Serial Chiller's history.
I didn't know how far back we should go.
Neither.
Let's get ourselves a look at Elizabeth Bathory.
Ooh, we got pictures now.
She at one point was known as the most beautiful woman in Hungary. So
Can you see it?
they can see it.
No, I mean.
The beauty.
Yeah.
is-
Do you feel it? Can you feel the eruption, brothers?
Yeah, she is
Do
beautiful.
you feel the eruption, brothers?
Do you feel it in the air tonight?
I'm trying to. What's that girl's name from
Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah.
Queen of Hearts?
Yeah, Queen of Hearts. Is that
It's
what
Helena Bonham Carter.
yeah, that. That's how she looks.
I guess.
No?
Like
You're not
the one
kidding?
when they did her like a real big head.
big
Yeah,
head.
that was
That-
Helena
that's-
Bonham Carter.
Yeah, big head vibes.
She's a baddie. She's a baddie.
Okay.
I'm like, pull up a photo of her.
Pull that.
We're gonna leave that up there for a little bit till we get to question number 2. So Elizabeth Bathory was born on the family estate. Like I said, dude, I'm gonna fuck up so many. So many names and locations today. Like the people from upstate New York, like fuck you guys for giving me a shit about this. The people from Hungary, you have
Yeah,
my
all you-
sympathy.
All you people from 16th century Hungary, whoo, get ready.
Well, like 16th century names can still be used today. So for the people that have those,
Do
my
you want
bad.
do you want me to jump ahead and spell everything phonetically for you?
It's not necessary. I'm pretty good at fucking things up. So, she is born, again, Nyírbátor, Kingdom of Hungary, August 7th, 1560. She's one of the oldest and wealthiest, She is born into one of the oldest and wealthiest families in all of Transylvania or Hungary. So this is like, the lines are always changing in these countries because there's a fucking battle going on between the Turks and the Ottoman Empire. And I'm not a historian, so don't correct me if I'm wrong. I don't care. This is about Elizabeth Bathory. But there's a fucking religious war going on. There's a political war going on. And she is part of this, like, historically huge and rich family that is dominating all of this. It's essentially the nobility versus the revolution. That's what it is.
Please.
She is not part of the revolution.
Okay.
Yeah. What'd you say, Elizabeth? Get off the screen.
So she's the empire and
She's Darth Vader.
right. She's Darth Vader, and everybody else is Captain Picard.
I knew you. I fucking knew it, dude. Okay. God damn it. I'm good.
Now that I'm in a fucking terrible mood, let's
Yeah,
get this
so,
show off the.
Like I told you guys when they would have probably referred to her with her surname first. So they might have, instead of, you wouldn't have heard them say Elizabeth Bathory. They would have said probably something closer to Bator Ershabet.
Okay.
See, I did that phonetically.
That's what gave me the idea.
So she would spend her very short childhood at Esed Castle. Her father was Baron George VI Bathory of Esed branch of the family. Her uncle Andrew Bonaventura Bathory, who had been a voivode of Transylvania. Question number 2. What is a voivode? Is it A, like the president or king? B, second in command? C, leader of lawmakers? Or D, a military commander? Yeah, I forgot I have this.
Okay.
Remind me, fuckers. Okay, both of the boys say D, a military commander. And both of them are going to get points because this almost assuredly mispronounced word, voivode, Voivode, is a military commander. 250 points to the both of you. Joseph has scored on every question so far.
It's been 2 questions.
Hey,
Yeah, 100%.
technically the truth.
Yeah.
And you've
Erroneous.
missed one of those.
You're not wrong.
Erroneous on all counts. Okay. So, yeah, her uncle is like the military commander. Her mother was Baroness Anna Bathory from 1539 to 1570. And who was the daughter of Stephen Bathory of Somullo, another voivode of Transylvania, who was the Somlyo branch. Though it gets a lot less boring, I swear you guys, hang in there. Through her mother, Elizabeth was the niece of Hungarian noble Stephen Bathory, the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania of the Polish and Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the Prince of Transylvania. So, like, there's more to this, but they're fucking... It's nobility on nobility on nobility.
So what you're saying is this lady's family just bought and sold dudes like Dracula.
Yeah.
'Cause
During
he
her...
had that big ass castle, but they were like, so fucking what?
Yeah, exactly. During her childhood, multiple sources say that she suffered multiple seizures, and they believe that it could have been caused by epilepsy. A lot of people think that it was actually caused by like the noble inbreeding, which is pretty common, I think, throughout like history, and you know, like, this is our blood, it is pure, and the only way to keep it pure is you go fuck your uncle, and that's what you do now.
Yeah.
So I think she's sort of the product of that. So some people are like epilepsy, and some people are like, yeah, but isn't her dad her grandpa?
Product of cousin fucking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roll Tide.
Keep it all in the family. Roll Tide. At the time, symptoms relating to epilepsy were diagnosed as falling sickness, and treatments included rubbing blood of a non-sufferer on the lips of an epileptic, or giving the epileptic a mix of non-sufferer's blood and piece of skull as the episode ended. So, you know, witchcraft. This leads.
Yeah, I mean, that is a brutal fucking.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem sustainable.
This leads to speculation that Elizabeth's later killings are going to be part of an effort to cure an illness that she had been suffering from since she was a young child. However, there was no hard evidence supporting the speculation. That's the thing about this story. I'm just going to let you guys know now. A lot of what I'm going to tell you is probably not true. Here's the problem. I don't really know.
Yeah.
So I brought some of what is commonly understood to be the truth.
Okay.
But I also backed it against what is like the tall tale of Elizabeth Bathory.
Okay.
Folklore almost.
Because there is not even almost. It 100% is. It's been handed down for generation through Hungary and Transylvania. She is as important as like Count Dracula. Mm-hmm. She like that. It's very much
very
like that.
deep rooted in the culture.
You'll see when we get it, and you'll probably even be reminded of this story later. So, another attempt to explain her cruelty that's going to go down later in life, many sources say that she was trained to be cruel by her family. Stories include Elizabeth as a child witnessing brutal punishments executed by her family's officers and being taught by family members involved with Satanism and witchcraft. Again, no hard evidence for these claims, but fucking metal. Some of them just may have inadvertently taught her the shitty ways that she'll progress to, because that's how they treated servants and peasants. Like, you just kind of beat them and knocked them down, and you fucking, who cares about them? And if your soup was too hot, you fucking threw it on them. Like, it was their problem, not yours. Elizabeth was raised as a Calvinist Protestant. I had no fucking idea what that was, so I just get the little cliff notes here. Calvinism is a major branch of Protestantism that follows the theological tradition and forms of Christian practice set down by John Calvin and other Reformation-era theologians. Calvinists broke from the Roman Catholic Church in the 16th century. So it's an offshoot of Roman Catholicism, is what I gather from that.
Yeah.
It's for people who don't like the whole stand up, sit down, kneel thing.
You are my brother.
Yeah, they just skip that whole thing.
Yeah.
10-minute services. The guy who speaks in Latin does it really fast,
Get the fuck out.
like the end of a lawyer commercial,
The Matchbox guy, that's what I always think of.
or like that FedEx commercial from the 80s.
Oh, yeah. We're old. So Elizabeth was raised as a Calvinist Protestant. As a young woman, she learned Latin, German, Hungarian, and Greek. Her family believed that women should also be learned, unlike a lot of noble families at the time. So normally at this time, women are like, yeah, you can help even rule over the empire, but you don't need to know how to like read and shit. You'll help us make decisions based on the things you've seen and know in life. You don't need
Now
to like
tighten up that corset.
Yeah, exactly. Which we saw the photo. It looks like that was happening anyway, even though she was a learned one. So she is obviously born into a privileged family of nobility. She was endowed with wealth, education, and a stellar social position. Before her first marriage, Elizabeth allegedly gave birth to a child. The child was said to have been fathered by a peasant boy who they supposedly gave away to a local woman that was trusted by the Bathory family. The peasant boy was found out and subsequently castrated. Oof. What did they do after the castration? Did they A, throw him in the river to drown, burn him at the stake, stone him to death, or throw him to wild dogs? So they castrated him, and then they backed it up with a little bit of more torture. Throw him in a river, burn him, stone him. You should be stoned. Way ahead of you, kid. Mm-hmm. Okay, Alex says that they would throw him in the river to drown. Joseph said they burned him at the stake. But after the castration...
I put threw him to wild dogs.
Oh!
That's just, it looks like one big bee because it's two little bees.
Use more space. There's all these cards here.
I was going to say, it for sure looked like
he had two D's stacked on top of each other. They look a lot like a bee.
It was organized.
Right. I don't need organized. I need to be able to just see what your answer is. Okay, I'll give it to him. Joseph said he threw him to wild dogs, and Joseph is going to continue answering every question correct because they did indeed throw him to wild dogs.
He for sure wrote me.
I'll give it to him. He has all three of his stacked. It definitely was. It just.
I'm like, isn't your mom a teacher?
He knows now that that's not how you write your answers down. All right. Here's the deal. Even though we're 92 episodes in, there's still not a lot of prizes happening. So.
Hey, the pride of your hood.
The pride. The pride. Okay, so yeah, they threw this young peasant boy to the dogs. The woman was paid for her act for taking the child, and it was taken to Wallachia. Evidence of this pregnancy came up along after Elizabeth's death through rumors spread by peasants. Therefore, the validity of the rumor is often disputed. We'll learn quickly that nearly everything I say today can and will be disputed because everything we know from people who've sifted through like court documents and marriage certificates and birth certificates and death certificates, and like people have done this and translated it from Hungarian and for this story. So it's quite interesting in my opinion. Elizabeth was engaged at the age of 10 to Ferenc Nadadzi, and he assumed her surname due to the fact that her family was far more powerful. So he's like, yeah, I'll take that. So she is engaged at the age of 10. Question number 4. At what age will she marry? Engaged at 10, guys. Did she get married at 10? Was it 5 years later at 15? Did they wait 8 years because he needed to be married to an adult? Oh,
I'm gonna change mine.
Are you? Okay. I'll allow it.
Oh yeah, I guess it's not my bad.
It's fine. It's done. You scribbled it out. Alex
Seems
said,
like we've been making a lot of concessions for Joseph tonight, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Hot in here.
Alex gets 1,000 points for writing down 13. Joseph switched his 13 to a 14 and will be getting 0 points for his answer. So Alex takes the 1250 to 750 lead.
Was it 13?
It was 13. She did get married at the age of
what I
13.
wrote.
And then he like quickly looked up and saw yours and was like, I'm going to scribble it out. And I was like, all right, if that's what you want to do.
He's like, I'll allow it.
Okay, so 1,000 points for Alex on question number 4. Alex has got the lead, 1,250 to 750. Keep on keeping on, guys. We got plenty of questions here left, 8 of them to go. So yeah, she's married at the age of 13. What a wonderful ceremony it must have been. Actually, I have here that it fucking was. It was like a rager. So they're married when she's 13. He was 19. They get married at the palace of Varnov Nad Topfu on May the 8th, 1573. Fuck you.
I'm laughing at the fact that they got married when she was 13. He's like, I've got an idea for a band at the wedding. And she's like, cool, please be the Wiggles. Like...
The
You don't even have
1573
similar
version.
What's that?
The 1573 version. They're like playing the lute.
The Vigos.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Vigos.
Like some Rafi shit.
Rafi's still doing the damn thing, man.
He was doing it back then too.
Yep, 1573. Rafi's
He's a
immortal.
vampire.
We just found it out tonight. So, okay, at the wedding, there were approximately 4,500 guests invited, and about that many attended. The festivities were said to have gone on for 3 days, and only ended when they ran out of wine. Shazam!
Damn, that's a lot of wine. That 3 days worth of wine for 4,500 people.
They were nobility, man. Elizabeth moved to Nadasdy Castle in Sarvar and spent much of her time on her own while her husband studied in Vienna or was at war. Nadasdy's wedding gift to Bathory was his household, Kastis Castle, situated on the Little Carpathians near Nove Mesto in Vahom and Trenčín on present-day Slovakia. So he gave her, like, it doesn't... It sounds like, yeah, here, you get my household. But it was less like, here, you get to take care of this, and more like, here, like, you rule over this. Here are the servants. Here is the giant fucking castle. Like, you do with this what you'd like. Like, this is my wedding gift to you. This is your castle. So she's, like, oddly trailblazing for her days. She's, like, running a castle. She's...
Good for her.
She's super
I
educated.
hope she does good things with it.
I think we all 4 know that she's not going to. But I appreciate your optimism nonetheless. So, the castle was and still is surrounded by a village and agricultural lands bordered by outcrops of the Little Carpathians. Fun fact, you can still go to her castle. The castle, in 1578, Nadasdy became the chief commander of Hungarian troops, leading them to war against the Ottomans. So, like I said, he's been in war or studying pretty much the entire time they've been married since she was 13. It's 5 years now. Question number 5, he's constantly at war and, as such, developed a nickname. What? I said... There you go. The Black Hero of Hungary, the Hungarian Dracula, Nadasdy the Destroyer, Or he didn't actually have a nickname with that small E on the end to be cute, I guess. On the slides. It's on the slides.
Oh, Nick Nammy.
Nickname. Is it the Black Hero of Hungary? The Hungarian Dracula. The Nadazdi the Destroyer. He didn't actually fucking have a nickname. Okay, Alex says Nadazdi the Destroyer. Joseph said he didn't have one. But he was the Black Hero of Hungary. Ooh. Yes, throughout his the wars, he was quite heroic in leading this army against the Ottomans. Yeah, he was he's medal on the warfield, man. That's what Ferenc Nadasdi did. Fuck me. So, with her husband at war, Elizabeth Bathory managed business affairs and the estates. That role usually included responsibility for the Hungarian and Slovak people, even providing medical care. During the Long War, from 1593 to 1606, Elizabeth was charged with the defense of her husband's estates, which lay on the route to Vienna. The threat was significant, for the village of the Castis had been previously plundered by the Ottomans, while Sarvar, located near the border that divided Royal Hungary and Ottoman-occupied Hungary, was in greater danger. So she's essentially holding it down at these several estates, making sure that passing through Ottoman troops aren't taking her castles. She's got her, men on the walls or whatever, and she's defending these, lands. So she's strategically moving with military units to defend her personal castles.
Sick.
So hardcore, metal, some might say. So Joseph was waiting for you, Greg.
Yeah, there you go.
I got you.
Yeah. So there were several instances where she intervened on behalf of destitute women, including a woman whose husband was captured by the Turks, a woman whose daughter was raped and impregnated. So she's defending the villages and her own personal property, which is the villages. She's standing up for the little people in a lot of she's very women forward. She's, besides a lot of the shit we're going to talk about, she seemed actually pretty fucking dope.
She's all, I don't think you guys should have the right to vote, but if you do, women get to vote too. Pretty progressive for 1500s.
Yeah, holding it down, Elizabeth Bathory. So it's also said that while her husband was away, Elizabeth's manservant Thorko would introduce her to the occult.
Dude, that's such a metal fucking name.
Thorko.
Thorko.
It's probably not pronounced like that at all, because there's some other names where I was like, no way. That's I saw it spelled phonetically. I was like, nah, I'm just going to keep saying it how I was. So she's learning about the occult through Thorko, her manservant. During this time of learning of the occult, Elizabeth eloped with a dark stranger. This dark stranger is said to have been possibly a witch. So she may have been away learning some witchcraft, honing her skills, practicing, and building strength in her newfound skills. Upon her return to the castle Castis, she came to find that her husband had returned in her absence. So he came home from war while she was gone with a witch studying the occult. The count did forgive her eventually for leaving. There is no evidence of what type of elopement this was. Some say that it could have even been a sexual one. The first 10 years of their marriage, Elizabeth bore no children because she and Ferenc shared so little time together as he pursued the career in war and in studies in Vienna. However, her daughter Anna Nadasdi was born in 1585 and was later to become the wife of Nicholas VI the Zrinski, who was the ruler of the most powerful kingdom in Croatia. Question number 6. How many children would she have in total? She had the one in 1585. Closest to the answer here is going to get 250 points. If you nail it, it's for 1,000. How many total children are there going to be? You know about one. Alex got that nice 1250 to 750 lead right now. The cushion. Alex said there's going to be 2 children in total. Joseph said there's going to be 4 in total. Joseph's going to get points. There's going to be 4 additional and 5 total. So Joseph will close the gap a little. Still behind 1250 to 1,000. Plenty of time, guys. Plenty of motherfucking time. 5 kids in total. Besides Anna Nadazdi, she has Orsolia Nadazdi, who was born in 1590, an unknown death date. She would later become the wife of Istvan Binyo. Cataline, Keta or Katarina Nadazdi from 1594, also unknown. Andras Nadazdi, who was born 1596 and died in 1603 at 7 years old. Pal Nadazdi was born in 1598, and there is a record of his death in 1650 at the age of 52. He was the father of Ferenc II of Nadazdi. By all accounts, she actually seemed to be a very good mother. From letters she wrote at the time, corresponding with other family members and nobility, seemed to be a very good wife as well. So, not incredibly surprising when you think about the fact that what we were talking about before is like, yeah, nobility is good to their family, but when it comes to the peasants and people below them and people who they don't believe are equals to them, maybe a problem. So there's some other chronicles that indicate that the couple had another son, albeit a lesser known child, named Miklos Nadazdi. Although this cannot be confirmed, and could be that simply a cousin or a child that died very young, or he is not named in the 16 will of the Countess Georgi Nadazdi, Ferenc's mother, who is also said to be quite overbearing of Elizabeth. So all these other 5 kids are in the will, and this kid that they think might have existed is not in this will. So they think that he either died before the grandmother did, or didn't ever exist at all.
Or they just kept him in like a room and pretended he didn't exist.
And they named him Hugo.
Feed fish heads.
Roly-poly fish heads, from what I understand, are the only type. Let's see. So Ferenc's mother, who was helping run the kingdoms that were handed to Elizabeth after the wedding, was like super overbearing, I guess. There are a lot of like kind of horror stories about her too. They all kind of seemed the same as a lot of it's so hard, and a lot of people requested this. I'm not sure if you've seen, Greg. Elizabeth Bathory has been quite requested, and I feel like this is definitely somebody who's got a better grasp of history's story to tell, much more than somebody who's got a true crime podcast. Like, I can get you the basic outline, but this is
A lot of people message you guys about it.
We get requests, and sometimes we ask for it a lot, and we just like to get ideas and see where people are at and what people want to hear. And she's always one that comes to,
like, in every wave.
Yeah.
Like it's either suggested to us or like put in the comments when we ask for some.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I could see how this would be a pain in the ass to try and put together. There's so much, and it's so muddy. Like none of it's a clear-cut line to like here's exactly what happened. It's, well, according to this source this happened, but according to this source
That's
this
exactly
happened.
it.
And there's absolutely no fucking records of it because it was the 15th or 16th century. And
But
nobody
this
could fucking
guy
read.
said his dad had an uncle whose cousin's brother's farmhand was
great. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So she had these children, possible 6th child that no one really knows if it was there or not. All of Elizabeth's children were raised by governesses, as Elizabeth had been. Noble parents are far too busy to do things such as raise their own children. Elizabeth's husband, Ferenc Nadazdi, would die on January 4th, 1604, at the age of 48. Although the exact nature of the illness which led to his death is unknown, it seems to have started in 1601 and initially caused debilitating pain in his legs. So remember, I said he died in 1604. So they think that he got sick 3 years prior to his death.
And just had a debilitating pain in his legs for 3 years.
His legs started, he lost his legs. From that time, he never fully recovered, and in 1600 became permanently disabled in his legs. So he couldn't walk anymore.
Probably just doing a fuck ton of opium.
The couple had been married for 29 years at the time of his death. It was said that after her husband's death, Elizabeth became even more sadistic. Before dying, Ferenc Nadazdi entrusted his heirs and widow to Georgi Thurzo, who was eventually going to lead the investigation into Elizabeth's crimes. So it's like his cousin, I believe. So he's like, just watch over my family. But he's also like, he works for the government, and at some point like a judge is going to go like, hey, I need you to go investigate this crime. So this family that he's like supposed to be watching over because he promised Ferenc he would is the
But
family
aren't
that,
they the government?
like he works for a judge who, like she
Ah.
is one of the kingdoms that is in the,
Gotcha.
yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, by this time, it is thought that she had dabbled into some forms of sorcery, attending rituals that included the sacrificing of horses and other animals. This may have never happened at all, but there are stories that say a lot of what people believe they know about the Countess happens to not be true. So this is, it's just another thing where I bring it because, like, fuck yeah, I want you to know that some people say she did some fucking sorcery and was out sacrificing horses and but there are some people that are like, are you fucking dumb? That would have never happened. She would have never done that. But like, that's not as interesting to me. So that's what this is really about, I think. Just know that, again, pretty much every cool fact I'm going to give you also has a dispute of someone being like, oh no, that did not happen. I'm sorry, just to let you know that's not true.
Yeah, but they weren't there and they don't know. Just like we weren't there and we don't know.
Nope.
So
you're just going to get the coolest sounding shit.
Yeah, whatever's cool, man.
So yeah, nothing can be proven. Exactly like Greg said, they're 400-year-old fucking stories that have been told over multiple generations. So like, if we all played telephone right now, would the message be the same at the end? Can you imagine it being over 400 years? And it's kind of mind-boggling to me that stories can even last that long if you really think about it. The next story that we're going to kind of talk about is another one of those tall tales. So Elizabeth is now into her 40s, and she grows increasingly vain after her husband's death, and she feared that she thought that she was aging quickly and she may lose her beauty. One day, a servant girl accidentally pulled her hair while combing it. So she gave it like a little extra tug on accident, trying to get through an extra thick part or a knotted part or something. Elizabeth turned and slapped the girl across the face with her multiple rings on, and it hit her so hard that it drew blood from the servant's mouth. The girl's blood fell onto Elizabeth's hand, and Elizabeth immediately thought that her skin took on the freshness of her young maid. She believed that she had found the secret of eternal youth. She believed... Elizabeth had her major domo, who's like her main assistant, and Thorco strip the maid and then cut her and drain her blood into a huge vat. Elizabeth bathed in it to beautify her entire body. Between 1602 and 1604, after rumors of Bathory's atrocities had spread through the kingdom, Lutheran minister István Magyari made complaints against her both publicly and to the court of Vienna. We could slow down for a second. Does any of this sound more familiar now that we're talking about her bathing in blood and shit?
100%, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not getting any ring bells.
There's some pop culture references too that I'll bring to you later that you might be like, oh. So like early on, so like these girls that are coming in, like this starts with her servant, and we're going to kind of go into it a little bit, but like essentially it's a kingdom. People come for they'll come to be a servant for good pay. And they'll just disappear or they'll die of cholera while they're here. Like, really sorry, family. And there's also some people that say like they knew what Elizabeth was doing and they were essentially selling their daughters. Now, there was not a contract saying like, here, buy my daughter, but it was like, oh, you go and you make the good money, you send it home, and if in 6 months you happen to die of some disease, and that'd be a shame. And that's kind of like the unwritten agreement that some people believe stood in there for Elizabeth and some of the peasant families in the area. The Hungarian authorities took some time to respond to Magyari's complaints. Finally, in 1610, King Matthias II, let's see. That's when he assigned Georgi Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, to investigate. Thurzo ordered 2 notaries to collect evidence in March of 1610, and in 1610 and 11, the notaries collected testimony from more than 300 witnesses over some of this torture that's suspected to be going on. So essentially, it set off a fucking whirlwind. Whether you believe the stories that she believed in, or that she bathed in blood or not, or if you just believe in the fact that some people died there, that story is rooted in some type of truth that there was an escalation at some point, and she really liked it. So people were going missing, and people were dying at an alarming rate in her
kingdom,
in her castle specifically. Let's see. I kind of jump ahead and then go back, so we'll kind of Tarantino this a little bit, but essentially she's got off the fucking rails temper. That's thing number one. She is super torturous, like we talked about. She learned maybe from her family. There are stories where she would put sewing needles into a sewing servant's fingers, and she would say, if the whore hurts, then the whore can remove it. And the whore would take the needle out, and Elizabeth would take a knife out and cut that finger off.
Oof.
They said that she would like burn them with cattle prods, like
Just like ruthless.
brand them. She said that like it was said that by some people that she would get angry and just run up and like rip their mouths open,
Oh
like
my
grab
gosh.
jaws and just fucking yank them apart. Yeah, she was very brutal. She was again, it may not have ever happened, but she was known to like beat people and bludgeon them so bad that they were just like a mist.
Wow.
She would like beat them into nothingness, beat them into a puddle.
To pulp.
Yeah, exactly.
Bloody pulp.
Bloody pulp. So, shit is wild, man. Shit is wild. It's getting crazy here.
Love a strong woman, though.
Yeah.
Independent, strong woman.
That's right. You don't need no man.
So there's going to be a trial later. We'll get all into that in a little more detail. So let's take a break right here. We'll come back with a Hella Greg story. A little Hella Greg side twist story. And also maybe a Hella Greg question. I don't know. That's up to him. So let's take 5 here and come back or I'll kill you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Bree.
And together we are Death & Co. Podcast.
Lindsay, what's keeping you alive this week?
Probably the warm sunshine that kisses me awake each morning. It makes me feel like Snow White. What about you, Bree?
I think my psychiatrist telling me that it's not just me and people really are made up of garbage.
Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Death & Co. Podcast.
And download and subscribe today on your favorite podcast platforms. Bye.
Drive my whip on the highway, know it's my day, I be doing my way. Sipping on that good drink, it's my day. I don't give a shit, man, you be up on my space. I be sitting on the top, chilling on a Friday. Ain't my girl looking fine, chilling with my feet up, sipping fine wine, oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't really care, man, we gon' turn it up. Sand on my feet and liquor in my cup, oh. I don't really care, man, we gon' turn it up. Sand on my feet and liquor in my cup, oh. Gon' fuck her on a Friday, driving on the highway. These ladies calling my name, we been popping off on everything. Gucci bags and some cocaine, moving up the food chain. Drive my whip on the highway, know it's my day, I be doing my way. Sipping on that good drink, I don't give a shit, man, you up in my space. I be sitting on the top on a Friday. My girl looking fine, chilling with my feet up, sipping fine wine, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Eating wild, Jackie, would you be with me? Money, up to you, but it's okay, have a good time, as long as you're mine, and that's all that matters. Hit my phone up, your boss say up, we can be together, that gon' me do so. Say because you mine, you and I, we can be fine until the very end. It's time to say the words, and I'll take you high.
Drive my whip on the highway, know it's my day, I be doing my way. Sipping on that good drink, it's my day. I don't give a shit, man, you be up on my space. I be sitting on the top, chilling on a Friday. And my girl looking fine, chilling with my feet up, sipping fine wine, oh yeah, oh yeah.
You ain't gotta be fly, girl, rock it so we never say goodbye, girl. You don't really know this, but you're the center of my world, my girl. Say it one more time for the back end, my girl, my girl. Eating chips in a cafe, drinking cold and with breakfast, you can call it an entree. Raging they party for français, I just ran out of things to say, hey.
Walking down the road, sipping on tea, breeze tonic, clear the throat, tar out, breathe out the known, ear aching for the sound of the woe, crush the throne, sleeping on couches, down the throat, deny all the spouses, summertime, slip on the breeze, freckles fine, sit down with me.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 92. Yeah, of the Serial Chillers podcast. let's take a break from the fucking late 1500s here. Greg, I actually love this because I told Greg we have a great juxtaposition. And I you know what? I don't know what your question is, so I won't go into that any further.
And after I looked up what juxtaposition meant, I agreed.
So without further ado, take us from 1560 to wherever we're heading now.
So I'm just going to lead off with the question, and then you guys can figure out what I'm talking about today. My question is, which Apollo mission landed the first men on the moon? Was it A, Apollo 8, B, Apollo 9, C, Apollo 11, or D, Apollo 13?
Tom Hanks.
I think it's. Wait, do we write it down?
Yeah, write it down.
Okay.
Just like a regular question. Greg gets questions in these days. Oh yeah, here we go. I put the wild card bitches up again.
Perfect.
What was yours, Alex?
It's D. Sorry.
Okay, Alex said 13. Joseph said 8.
There are no points awarded. It was Apollo 11 that allegedly put men on the moon. Yeah, no points there. So yeah, July 16th, 1969, Apollo 11 launched, fired off into space, and 4 days later, on July 20th, 1969, we allegedly landed on the moon.
Conspiracy.
Now, is there anything else around these allegedlys?
A lot of air quotes. Yeah. Mostly, I mean, we did it because of the Cold War. Everybody was afraid that, like, the Ruskies were going to get to space first and that they were going to make it to the moon and that they were going to put a missile base on the moon and nuke us from orbit, which is what everybody was afraid of. A reasonable fear. But, and to be fair, the Russians were making leaps and bounds. They fired a dog and like a basketball-sized satellite up into space.
Didn't they do the monkey?
Yeah, they did a monkey. They did, I mean, the U.S. did monkeys too. But they did...
Didn't they also chuck some humans up there they were pretty sure they weren't going to get back?
Oh, yeah.
We put a wet napkin on a bee and it died.
That was science in like the early 40s through like, I don't know, 1980. That's just kind of what they did. They were like, but it was people instead of a bee.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, hey, you go to Vietnam, like, you want to get out of Vietnam? And people were like, fuck yeah. And they're like, cool, come to this facility and you're going to test summer clothing. And they're like, cool. And so they'd put on summer clothing and they'd be like, here, go in there. And then they'd hit them with chlorine gas. And they'd be like, oh, okay, so summer clothing does nothing to protect anybody from chlorine gas. Next. And that's not even a joke, dude. Look up Bad Trip to Edgewood, but I digress. This is about the moon landing.
I get that on my phone.
It's actually a super fucked up documentary. They were advancing the space program and leaving America in the dust. The Russians were. It should be noted that government contracts usually go to the lowest bidder. So anybody building parts around this time would be doing it for less than anyone else building the same parts. And I say usually because that's not always the case. So yeah, anybody who's building those parts would usually be doing it for less than anybody else building the same parts, just because that's how government contracts work. They look to see who's going to give them the most.
Who will undercut everyone else?
Yeah, unless somebody is directly profiting off of it, like
owns part of the business that they hired for it.
Right. Exactly. Then, but that wasn't happening in this case, I don't believe. But that can contribute to the slow down of progress. But I'm not saying that's the case. Just, probably a statistical probability.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So the U.S. had a pretty tall order, and they were pretty much falling behind the Russians. But it would be more cost effective to like stage it. You know what I mean?
Stanley Kubrick, that shit.
Yeah.
Do you believe that that's what happened? Do you think it was Stanley Kubrick?
I'm not going to tell you what I believe.
All right.
Because I have my own thing. I'll tell you at the end.
You're like a fucking adjunct professor at like doing a poli-sci class. You're like, I'm not going to tell you who I'd vote for. I'm like, dude, you're wearing a MAGA hat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. What I think is usually wrong.
Yeah, but
from what I've learned.
What if what you think matters to me.
Then I'll tell you at the end. If you
right.
still want to know at the end, if you haven't already formed your own opinion, and
Fair.
So, according to an expert who worked for one of the rocket companies, this is all from a documentary that I got. The odds of going to the moon and returning were something like 0.00017%.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There is a chance, but virtually impossible. The same expert said that they orbited the Earth for 8 days while the footage was shown, and basically that's like they filmed everything, launched the rocket, orbited the Earth for 8 days, and then landed in accordance with the footage.
The timing of the footage.
Right.
Huh.
He said there was a budget of approximately $40 million, which was more than enough to fake a moon landing, especially in 1969. and there was also a movie about the very same thing happening that came out in like 1970 or 1971 called Capricorn 1, and it was about the government faking a mission to Mars.
It was like the dude with the juicy take was like, fuck, I can't really tell anybody about this.
Yeah.
But I could write a screenplay.
And that's kind of, I mean, a lot of people think that's how these things get leaked in the first place, is that somebody who knows, somebody who worked on the moon landing set was like, yo, dude, I've got a great idea for a script and nobody's going to fucking believe it. And, and they do it. And then that's their way of telling people. That's the little wink. Like, what was it? Mary Tyler Moore used to pull on her ear to say goodnight to her mom. Like, that's their whole little like wink to the world and being like, we fucking know. But
timely reference.
Thanks. So there were a lot of big argument, like the main arguments for why it didn't happen is the lack of stars in the sky, the flag waving even though there's no atmosphere on the moon, the blast crater beneath there is no blast crater beneath the lunar landing module, and the footprints. If that thing landed, there shouldn't be any footprints in the dust. There shouldn't be dust.
Should have blown all the dust away. There should have been a crater and all the dust should have been gone.
Yeah, so a lot of people think it was filmed at Area 51 just because the whole moon setting looks like the Nevada high desert.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Now, Russian spy satellite imagery, take that for what it's worth, of Area 51 shows large hangars that look like sound stages from the outside. My guess is they have planes in them. Anyway, it's just a barren desert surface and it looks like the moon. They even said that there's lots of craters out there. But I also like to think that the Nevada high desert, where they were testing all these experimental aircraft, they were also probably testing experimental explosives, and blasting craters like that was probably something that happened. Even in one of the radio transmissions when Neil Armstrong is like walking on the moon, quote unquote, he compares it to the high desert in the United States. So that was weird.
Why would he do that if that's where they were?
Exactly. See, you just made you say that. Like, you just argued like their point. Why would they do that? Why would we say that if like they're hiding in plain sight, dude?
You're innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around.
It's 2019.
Yo, man, I seen Buzz knock a dude out for telling him he's lying.
We already
Buzz
had this
Aldrin.
discussion. I'm like 90% sure I can take Buzz Aldrin.
Now or 1969 Buzz Aldrin?
Absolutely, 100% now. He was a goddamn astronaut back then. They're like peak physical condition. They're like the top 1% of the top 1%.
All right, so maybe he's tricking me.
Maybe.
He turned to
Plus
the
there was-
camera and went like this right after it too. It's like the Nevada high desert.
Well,
and then it
so,
went
like-
dooba-da-ba-ba-da.
Well, I mean, if you look at the photographs, there's poor quality video, and so it should have been, it's easy to fake because it's poor quality video. You don't have to be precise in your editing and stuff like that because it's poor quality. And they just said, well, that's the transmitter that was available at the time. That was what we had. That was the technology, and everybody just kind of accepts that as okay. Yeah, it was 1969. We put 4 men on the moon, but We can't get clear video quality. And NASA also controlled the video coming in, saying, you know, that they got it first before it went out to all the television stations. If you double the footage or double the speed of the footage,
It like just looks like them hopping.
it just looks like they're running in the desert in awkward, clunky spacesuits.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it also looks like the little rover that they had, the lunar rover, when you double that one, it just looks like it's driving in the desert, especially because the dust that it kicks up just comes right back down. It doesn't
Like
hover
floated
and
half
float
the...
like it would if they had a sixth of the gravity it did on Earth.
I see.
Also, if you look at the cameras that they used on the original space or on the original moonwalk, they had these big like chest mounted cameras, and they had no way to operate them really. They didn't have like, you couldn't take the picture with their gloves because they were so clunky, and they didn't have a viewfinder, so they couldn't look down and see what they were taking pictures of, because every time they would start to look down, the cameras were so heavy they would fall over. So they had to like position their body towards what they wanted to take a picture of, and then take a picture and hope that it was in focus and centered and the right exposure and all that stuff.
It's a lot of shit to make sure it's working
without a light meter or being able to see it,
and shooting blind, literally not looking.
Yeah.
Just kind of positioning your shoulders where you think Buzz is standing, and
they could have
taking a
practiced
picture
beforehand, though. Before they're
you could absolutely practice, but
it's like, okay, this is what needs to happen for it to be
yeah,
good.
and I'm sure that there was some sort of training to that effect, saying, hey, you know, you got to do this, you got to stand this way, you got to turn, I want you to be familiar with where the button is to take where the shutter button is, so that you don't miss and fuck something up. But all the pictures are in focus. Everybody's centered. There aren't like bad ones.
Like it's too perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also issues with the lighting. If you look, some of the shadows diverge.
Like they
converge.
They're lit from multiple angles instead of one.
Yeah. Like if you look at the photo, like the lunar lander's here and the shadow comes off at a 90-degree angle, and then the rocks that are closer to the foreground of the camera, the light comes back at like a 45-degree angle back towards the camera.
Yeah.
And
the rocks are front lit, the lander's backlit. It's all wrong.
Yeah. There's no stars visible in the background of the pictures. But I don't know, man. I've got my theories. I'm not gonna take up too much more of your time with saying the moon landing's fake. I'm gonna go more in depth eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just have to wait for you to go more in depth at some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I ultimately think is that somebody did go to the moon. People didn't come back, and in an effort to keep it quiet, we faked the footage that we see is faked. The footage that everybody knows and loves is not taken from the moon, because either coming through the radiation belt that's thousands of miles thick and hundreds of miles above the Earth wiped all the film clean from the moon landing. The guys didn't survive coming through that because of the radiation. It got through that thing's, like I said, thousands of miles thick and hundreds of miles above the Earth. And these guys are flying through it in a tin can with a fiberglass and rubber suit. They're with less computing power than the original iPhone. Like, how if they can withstand that kind of radiation, why didn't they use those suits and go, drop into Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island and clean that shit up real quick? Because they can obviously withstand pretty like cosmic radiation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just all the evidence. No one specific piece of evidence says like, hey man, the moon landing's fake. But if you look at a bunch of stuff, it just looks fishy.
Fishy moon landing. Joseph, what do you think, dude? Do you think they went?
No.
What about you, Alex?
I don't know. I saw this movie in 2015 called Moonwalkers. Have you seen it, Craig?
I haven't.
Super good. It has Ron Perlman in it and Rupert Grint. So Ron from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But it's basically like they're trying to track down Stanley Kubrick, and they like can't find him. So they have to like basically make the fake moon landing. Like they have to like
Nice.
film it. It's super cool. You guys
That's
should watch
cool.
it.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, so I don't know. I remember watching that and I was like, I could see how it could be fake, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so you're a photography guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure like look, you'd have a better eye for looking at some of these photos than I do, because on some what they did was they like laser etched crosshairs onto the lenses of all the cameras
Mm-hmm.
so that you could see. But in some of the photos, the crosshairs are behind the objects.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like
It
there's a
doesn't
piece of
add up.
equipment sitting in the foreground,
Yeah.
and there's stuff behind. You know,
Bad shop jobs.
yeah, it's kind of what it looks like. It just looks like poor Photoshop.
Yeah.
And you know, I can tell it's shopped because of the way that it is. And I don't know, like I said, you being into photography more and knowing more about it, you'd probably be able to look at some of this stuff and see stuff that I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But it would I think it would be worth your time just to look at them, just to look at the photos and see what you think about like the crosshairs being behind objects and light sources going different directions and stuff like that.
That's the thing that I think when you were talking about it popped out to me the most, because like that totally wouldn't happen. You know, you wouldn't have things evenly lit and like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
And what I did is I went through and I watched this documentary about how the moon landing was faked.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through and I put the argument together about how it's faked. And then after I was done, I started going through and trying to like disprove each argument.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like so I can get an unbiased opinion on the whole thing. You know, this is what it is. This is where the truth lies. And the only thing I really didn't agree with when I was looking at it was like the guys who made Unreal Engine. You know, like the computer software, like the simulation software. They simulated the moon landing and showed that with immersive world lighting or whatever they called it, it does create what appears to be multiple light sources through reflections off the rocks on the moon and stuff like that, because the moon reflects 12% of the light that it hits, which is why it lights up during the night, because it's reflecting the sun. So, yeah, they showed that alternate light sources, or it would look like alternate light sources when it's really just
like crazy reflections of giant moon rocks.
Well, right, and there's no atmosphere to break up the UV rays, so you're getting super intense sunlight, and 12% of it's being reflected.
Yeah. There's a Mythbusters episode about it, and then they were talking about like with the flag itself, when they slam it into the thing, like the momentum that would cause it wiggling and stuff like that.
Yeah, did you see how the flags were constructed?
Like had the pole across the top, so it would always be.
So it's like it hangs instead of being blown outward by the wind.
Right.
But just thinking about the direct UV rays. So these guys were in these insulated spacesuits, and according to the documentary I watched, if they were in the shadows on the moon, like behind a hill or something like that, or even behind the lunar module, it would be like negative 250 degrees. And if they were in the light on the moon, if they were in like direct sunlight on the moon, it would be like plus 250 degrees. It would be 250 degrees. And they had liquid cooled spacesuits. So I don't know. I can't say to that. I've never been to the moon. I can't tell you what it's like to stand in direct sunlight on the moon.
You should go. It's nicest in June, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
I'd probably just shoot for June 2020, though. Prices are probably outrageous this short notice this year.
Right.
I pulled up the photo.
That's.
Yeah, we'll post some of these online. I took some notes here, but
Which one's that?
This is the shadows going different directions, right?
And then the flag like in the wind.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but the flag in the wind doesn't really bother me that much because no atmosphere. You know, I mean, like if you shake it, it's gonna shake. There's nothing to stop it. There's no friction. There's no gravity acting against it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really. What did bother me was so because there's no atmosphere, there's no noise. There's no air for the sound waves to travel on. So like I watched a video of some dudes working on the outside of the International Space Station, and they were using a power drill, not like a DeWalt, but like a NASA grade DeWalt, and it made zero noise. He's running the power drill, and it made zero noise because there's no air for the sound waves to travel on. So you see these guys on the moon, and he was hammering in a rod to get a core sample, like down into the surface, and it had to go down like 24 inches. And so he's driving on it with this steel hammer, and you hear it thunk, thunk. So I don't know how you would get sound waves like that if there's no atmosphere. What NASA's excuse or explanation was that the vibrations traveled through the pressurized suit and up to the mouth, to the microphone by his mouth, and that's why you heard it, because the suit acted like a drum.
Huh.
And I'm skeptical.
Like, is that right, Mr. Von Braun?
Well, because when they were landing the rocket, those rocket engines are around, what do you say, like 140 to 150 decibels, which is insanely loud.
It's like louder than a stadium full of people.
That's louder than the loudest stadium.
Yeah.
By like 10 decibels. So you should have been able to hear it on the microphone while they were talking. They were inside a pressurized container while that thing's landing, and he's telling them, stay right, drift back left, and then they land. You should have been able to hear that rocket if it's 140 decibels and it's shaking that tin can that they're in. It should have picked up.
Yeah.
But you don't hear it. But then you're in space, so there's nowhere for the sound waves to travel.
Yeah.
But then you hear him hammering
space,
stuff in.
No one can hear you scream.
Yeah.
I just made that up. Trademark.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I look forward to the day where we get to hear the rest of that story.
Yeah, man.
I know you've got a lot to say on it, so.
I do. I have thoughts.
All right, guys. We're not far from the end here, Elizabeth Bathory. I have a little side story of my own, too. I won't keep you guys all night, I promise. But what I will do is bring you question number 8. It's gonna get fucking wild, and I'll tell you that Guinness once had Countess Bathory in the book for most people killed by a woman. What was that number? She's no longer in there, if I'm not mistaken. But at one point, for a very long time, she was. How many people did Guinness say she killed?
Dang, she got usurped.
Call Guinness. I think it was more like they proved that was not quite correct. So they. Okay, Alex said 180. Joseph said 12.
That's so far from each other.
That's really sexist, Joseph.
Yeah, Alex is going to get the points, though, because while she had her run in the book and a lot of the evidence that the people will say they have shows signs that she may have killed 650 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I meant to add a couple zeros.
So 250 points to Alex. What do you got here, buddy? 1,500 now. Joseph's got 1,000. Yeah. So yeah, it's still a game, dude. It's still a game. Okay. So yes, 650. What say you to that? That's a lot. Yeah. Is that a lot to kill? I don't know. I've never really talked about serial killers before.
On like, what kind of scale though? Like, what was the timeline?
From the time her husband died to the time she got caught, it was like, I want to say,
it's probably like what, 30 years?
Not even. It was 10, 12.
Oh, really?
Okay, because I was gonna say like,
but she didn't age in those.
Yeah, like Jonestown wiped out like what, 900 people in an afternoon.
Yeah, some crazy shit. But
so
this is more like a one-person solo job, like killing.
Yeah, this is some Genghis Khan type shit.
Yeah. So, 650. Later, she is said to have begun to kill daughters of the lesser gentry who were sent to her, I think it's called gymnasium. Essentially, like, girls of nobility or non-nobility would go here to, like, learn how to be proper, like how to be like a noble woman, like how you act, how you dress, how you behave at social functions. And so she was
like
running
a finishing school.
Yeah, it kind of is almost exactly what it is, but it's also like a boarding house. Like all of the women of the kingdom who were involved in her program stayed here, while all the men stayed at their own facility.
Where they had a facility with Turok.
Yeah. What's his name now? It's not Turok.
Yeah, the dinosaur hunter.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Cerebral Bore, best gun ever. No, I can't fucking find it.
Turmeric.
Turmeric.
Thorak?
Thorak.
I think Thorak sounds the closest.
Turlock.
No, it's not
That's it,
fucking
dude.
Turlock. Shut up.
Turtleneck.
It's hilarious.
It's getting kind
Said
of hot. in here.
turtleneck.
Tomahawk.
You should wear shorter shorts.
Fuck it, it's gonna come back up again. Shut up. Okay, so the atrocities described most consistently included severe beatings, burning or mutilation of hands, biting the flesh off the faces, arms, and other body parts, freezing or starving to death. Like, she was all about exposure. Like, just put a chick out there naked for the night when it was going to be fucking freezing. Like, yeah, survive that. The use
I know it's the 16th century, but don't kink shame.
The use of needles was also mentioned by the collaborators in court. There were many suspected forms of torture carried out by Elizabeth. According to the Budapest City Archives, the girls were burned with hot tongs and then placed in freezing cold water. They were also covered in honey and placed in live ants. Elizabeth is also suspected of cannibalism in some cases. Some witnesses named relatives who died while at the gymnasium. Yeah, so like, there's just a ton of people coming forward with the stories that, like, I was brutalized by her, I was beat by her, I was crushed by her, and then there are others that are like, yeah, our daughter went to this school and she never came back. I don't know, it's not a school, it's like a society, But at any rate, like, that this is happening and it's becoming more and more prevalent.
So I'd like to go back to covered in honey and placed in live ants.
Yeah, that's fucking gnar.
I mean, it is, but would they bite you? Like, wouldn't they just get stuck on you and you just be like ant paper or like fly paper, but covered in ants?
I don't know. I feel like you've
until
thought
the
about
ants
this.
got so thick that they could walk on each other and not get stuck.
And then start biting you?
To get
Well,
out.
yeah, but I mean, I feel like that would take a long time.
Yeah, but there's a lot of ants,
Do ants eat? I thought they pick up and then take to there.
Well, they have to eat.
But I mean, like, don't
Well,
they
I mean,
pick
I've
up and then go
definitely
back to
been
their-
bit and stung by some ants, that were pissed off at what I was doing. You just step on one and stand there for a while, and they'll start attacking the shit out of you. You don't even need the honey. That's what I'm saying. I put my foot in a fire ant hill once when I was a kid, and that shit was like real deal. Like, I was in the hospital for a minute.
Oh,
it was
shit.
like,
Wow.
yeah.
My cousin and I jumped out of a tree into fire ant hills and would like kick them.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, so two witnesses, court officials Benedict Decio and Jacob actually saw the Countess torture and kill young servant girls. I'm sorry, that name's just not going to happen. According to testimony of the defendants, Elizabeth Bathory tortured and killed victims not only at the Kashtis, but also on her properties at Sarvar, Nemetkyurtislar, and Bratislava, and Vienna, and elsewhere. Bratislava, I know because you guys remember Eurotrip?
I never saw it.
Oh, man. Bratislava, Miami Vice, #1 new show. Greg, do you remember? In Eurotrip when they landed Bratislava? All right.
Dude, I just watched American Pie for the first time.
Dang.
Yeah.
It's all right. Watch Eurotrip.
All right. Thank you.
For sure. In addition, several people were named for supplying Elizabeth Bathory with young women procured by either deception or force. Elizabeth's henchmen continued to provide Elizabeth with new girls for the blood-draining ritual and her blood baths that were said to have taken place, although Kim Kraft, one of the foremost experts on Bathory, says that claim is overblown and downright bizarre. Not only would one person's blood not even come close to filling up a tub, it would take, so it's odd. This woman did the calculations for you, so you didn't have to. How many people's blood would it have taken to fill a average sized bathtub from then? Question number 9. How many people's blood to fill an average bathtub according to foremost expert Kim Kraft? So she's saying like that people are saying, oh, she used to almost on the daily bathe in an entire tub of blood. Kim Craft saying, fucking garbage. Let me tell you why. Because it would take this many people's blood to do that. All right. Joseph said 8. Alex said 25.
Oh my God. Why are we so far apart right now?
Because Alex is getting 250 more points. Kim Craft claims that it would take somewhere about 35 full exsanguinations of a human to fill an average-sized bathtub. With a
in the game.
Is this a game you really want to get your head into? So, 1750 to 1000. It's not over yet, but it's getting farther from your grasps. There is no doubt about that, Joseph. I wish you luck, and may God have mercy on your soul. So, Elizabeth went out of her way to see to it that the dead girls were given proper Christian burials by the local Protestant pastor, at least initially. As the body count rose, the pastor refused to perform his duties in respect because there were too many girls coming in from Elizabeth who had died of, quote, unknown and mysterious causes. So he's like, he tells her personally at one point, like, look, I can see them that you're bringing in, you know? And I think it's like a very quiet conversation between them. And she's like, yeah, you keep handling this shit, though. So then he, like, writes a formal letter to the kingdom about, like, the amount of bodies. And it says something along the lines of, your grace should not have acted so because it offends the Lord, and we will be punished if we do not complain to you and criticize your grace. And in order to confirm that my words are true, we need only exhume the body, and you will find that the marks identify in which the death occurred. So he's saying, like, you pull a body up, you'll see that she didn't die of cholera. Her throat was slit, and
This guy's talking forensic science in 1600.
yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Get some.
And he's a priest.
I can get some.
He's a priest. So she then threatened the Protestant priests in order to keep him from spreading the news of her, quote, hobby, and continued to have the bodies buried secretly. Near the end, many bodies were disposed of in haphazard and sometimes dangerous and conspicuous locations, like nearby fields, wheat silos, and streams running behind the castle. The kitchen vegetable garden. So they're like, some of these people were being composted, is what they're saying. But one of the intended victims would eventually escape and tell the authorities about what was happening at the castle of Castis. Now, remember, they're already investigating. They've been investigating for like years because shit's going around. People think, you know, some shit is already happening there. Greg, you got a smirk. What's your thought?
I'm just thinking about them composting the dead people. It made me think of, wait a second. The fish ate dick.
And we ate
and
the
we're
fish.
eating the fish.
So we ate dick.
No, that can't be right because
Also watch Strange Wilderness, you guys. Seen that one?
I started it and then I didn't finish. I think I fell asleep when I watched it.
Watch it again. So, King Matthias of so see that? Matthias of Hungary ordered Elizabeth's own cousin. Look at this is it. I've been calling him Georgi, but it's Dyrgya. That's how it says it's pronounced.
Georgi.
It's G-Y-O with an umlaut, R-G-Y. It looks like Georgi or Georgi. And it says it's pronounced Dyrgya.
Yeah.
D-Y-E-R-D. Yeah. Dyrgya.
Dyrgya.
So Georgi Thurzo, governor of the province, to raid the castle. So he's pretty much telling, like, hey, listen, we've got what we need. It's time for you to fucking raid this shit. On December 30th, 1610, they raided the castle, and they were horrified by terrible sights. One dead girl in the main room, drained of blood, and another alive whose body had been pierced with holes. In the dungeon, they discovered several living girls, some of whose bodies had been pierced several times. Below the castle, they exhumed the bodies of some 50 girls. It was said that Thurzo went to Castis Castle after Christmas on the 30th of December 1610 and not only found hard evidence, but caught Bathory in the act. Thurzo arrested Bathory and 4 of her servants who were accused of being her accomplices. Doriatia Semestes, Ileana Jo, Katerina Benica, and
Janos Uvari.
The Countess. Thank you. The
Yeah,
Countess.
no problem. That's the only one I was like, you know what? I could probably hit that one.
The Countess was put under house arrest at this time. Although it is commonly believed that Bathory was caught in the act of torture, there's little evidence to support this. So, just again, it's a bouncing back and forth thing of
That is still pretty fucking progressive for Romania in the late 1500s. Like, you know what? House arrest. You have this giant castle that you've been getting people into and killing. You
keep hanging out
stay
there
here. Don't leave.
She was definitely being watched a lot more then. So she was arrested and detained prior to the discovery of the presentation of the victims. It seems most likely that the whole idea of Thurzo discovering Bathory covered in blood to be an embellishment of fictionalized accounts. Almost like much of what I have told you today. Pretty much everything. Thurzo debated further proceedings with Elizabeth's son Paul and 2 of her sons-in-law. A trial and execution would have been caused a public scandal and disgraced a noble and influential family, which at the time ruled Transylvania completely, and Elizabeth's considerable property would have been seized by the crown. Thurzo, along with Paul and her 2 sons-in-law, originally planned for Elizabeth to be spirited away to a nunnery, but as accounts of her murder of daughters of lesser nobility spread, it was agreed that Elizabeth Bathory should be kept under strict house arrest until further punishment should be avoided. So they pretty much they were like, look, we can't kill her. We can't put her in prison. She's like, I mean, it's like today. It's really just like today.
It seems like it. Like it's like I said, this all seems really progressive for the late 1600s. But I guess money's always been money, man.
Yeah, and that's just it. She's never going to be put on trial. The 4 assistants that she that are arrested with her will be put on trial, but there are 2 trials in total. The first trial would take held in the wake of Bathory's arrest. The first was held on January 2nd, 1611. The second on January 7th, 1611. Dozens of witnesses and survivors, sometimes up to 35 a day, testified. All but one of the Countess's servants testified against her. In addition to the testimony, the court also examined a skeleton and cadaver parts found as evidence. The exact number of Elizabeth Bathory's victims is unknown, and even though contemporary estimates differ greatly, during the trial, Doriatas Ventes and Fico reported 36 and 37 victims respectively during their periods of service. The other defendants, Ilona Joe and Katerina Benica, estimated a number of 50 or higher. Many Sarvar Castle personnel estimated the number of bodies removed from the castle between 1 and 200. A servant who spoke at the trial as a witness was said to have provided a list of more than 650 names, allegedly in Bathory's own handwriting. So they said that they had this book. This is the woman who escaped and said you guys got to get the fuck over there and see what is going on. Said she found a journal with just 650 girls' names and dates next to it. Wow. So she thought this is the list of people she's killed. So that's where that number has come from all this time. When really,
does it have to? I mean, does victim mean killed? Because like they said, there were girls that were chained up in the basement that had holes pierced through them and stuff like that.
Were there?
That's what they said. That's what they used as evidence.
Yeah.
Why couldn't she do that? Why couldn't she just get a small harem and use them like a farm? Don't kill them, just puncture them every now and then and get your blood. You don't have to kill as many people.
It's very progressive vampire of you. So a servant who spoke at the trial as a witness said to provide a list of more than 650 allegedly in Bathory's own handwriting. As the number 650 could not be proven, the official count remained at what? What'd they go with in court? They said, we can't prove 650. You're saying 50 or higher. These 2 are saying 25. So they get it together, kind of look over all the missing people versus names on this list and blah, 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 blah. The court is officially going to say this number. Even though she does not go on trial. This is her servants on trial. But this is going to be the amount that they believe Bathory is responsible for. Okay. Alex said 115. Joseph said 300. And Joseph drifts farther from the lead because Alex gets 250 more points on that one.
Pulled a sneaky on you.
I did a funny. Because in the trial, they decided on the number 80.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and that's where the people who believe they are telling everybody believes they're telling the real story, but the people who are telling the historically accurate story believe that the number is somewhere between like 50 and 80. And there's even fight between those people because some are like, it's fucking 50, you idiots. And some are like, it's 62. The evidence is here, you fuckface. So, it's just like Greg knows from UFO, aren't there several famous rifts between UFO hunters and shit like that? So it's just
infighting.
Yeah, it's a lot of infighting.
It's all politics, man. Fuck them. Focus on the truth, boys.
Okay, so Joseph, you are down 2,000 to 1,000. Let me look ahead here. See,
you got to stab Joseph.
Well, you have the opportunity to stab on one of them, so it's not out of the question here. There's two multiple choice and a stab, so that's a stab only though. So Alex will be getting a chance at it as well. You're gonna want to nail it. Fine. Okay, so reportedly the location of the diaries is unknown, but 32 letters written by Bathory are stored in the Hungarian State's archive in Budapest. Bathory was imprisoned in Kastis Castle and placed into a solitary confinement. So she got to stay in her castle, but full-time guards are there, and they imprisoned her by bricking off a set of rooms with only small slits left open for ventilation and passing of food. So she had a bathroom, a bedroom, like a view out the window, but she was confined to this part of the house or of the castle, and that was all she ever had for the rest of her life.
Oh.
Yeah. So she remained there for several years until her death. Question number 11. In what year did Elizabeth Bathory die? 1610, 1612, 1614, or 1616?
Or is she still alive?
I thought about putting it on there just for fun.
Shoulda.
What do you got, Alex?
That's a C.
Okay.
It's a moon.
Okay, so they both said, which will not help Joseph if this is correct, which it is, 1614. So, she died 4 years later in 1614. Joseph, that didn't help you, but your stab is what's going to matter next on this one. So,
well, but he kept the gap from getting bigger.
That's true. That's true. Okay. So on the evening of August 21st, 1614, Bathory complained to her bodyguard that her hands were cold, whereupon he replied, "It's nothing, mistress, just go lie down." She went to sleep and was found dead the following morning. She was buried at the church of Kastis on the 25th of November, 1614, but according to some sources, due to the villagers' uproar about having the blood countess buried in their cemetery, her body was removed to her birth home in Essid, where she was interned in the Bathory family crypt. When it was attempted to be exhumed in 1995, the body of Elizabeth Bathory was nowhere to be found. The location of her body is today still unknown.
Weird.
So
I know exactly where it is.
Next to Jimmy Hoffa?
No, there's some guy in like a Adidas tracksuit squatting somewhere, and that body's pushed under his bed.
Oh my God.
It's chilling with Tupac.
So, Kastis Church or Kastis Castle does not bear any markings of her possible grave. Several authors, such as Laszlo Nagy and Irma Sadecki Cardos, have argued that Elizabeth Bathory was a victim of a conspiracy. Yes, the Bathory sympathizers. Greg, you're going to have to get into the conspiracy of Elizabeth Bathory, okay? Nagy argued that proceedings against Bathory were largely politically motivated, possibly due to her extensive wealth and ownership of large areas of land in Hungary, escalating after the death of her husband. So a lot of people say, like, oh, pretty much they use semantics and a little bit of, what everybody's doing. Oh, yeah, we're all beating our fucking slaves. But if we send someone in there saying she's extra beating her slaves and we just catch her on a bad day.
I mean, I could see it where they were like, you know what? We can't have a female in power like this. That's not good for the look. That's bad for the brand. And so they make a whole thing up to get her entombed or imprisoned in her own house.
Yeah.
Which would make sense as to why they didn't just execute her.
Yeah, it says also that the theory is consistent with Hungarian history at that time, which included religious and political conflicts, especially relating to the wars with the Ottoman Empire and the spread of Protestantism and the extension of Habsburg power over Hungary. There are counter arguments made against this and just about every theory in there. More infighting. The investigations into Bathory's crimes sparked by complaints from a Lutheran minister, István Magyari. So that was like the 10 years before it all happened. That guy was like, hey, listen, anybody who will, I think some fucky shit is happening in here. And then
You guys
finally,
want to hear something crazy?
yeah. This did not contribute to the notion that the Catholic Habsburg plot against the Protestant Bathory, although religious tension is still a possible source of conflict as Bathory was raised Calvinist, not Lutheran. To support Bathory's innocence, the testimony of around 300 witnesses and the physical evidence collected by the investigation may have been addressed and disputed. That evidence included numerous bodies and dead and dying girls found when the castle was entered in Thurzo. They essentially, some people are saying like, hey, yeah, there was a dead girl. Like, what are we supposed to do with her? Throw her out in the river? She died 2 days ago, and like,
and it's 1609.
yeah, like we're waiting for the bring out your dead cart.
I'm not dead yet.
So it's that's what some of the people will say, in defense that like she got railroaded and this is why, and that's one of the major reasons you'll find.
I'm with them.
Yeah. So
Free Countess Bathory.
so it says Decky Cardos argues the physical evidence was exaggerated and Thurzo misrepresented dead and wounded patients as victims. So the case of Elizabeth Bathory inspired numerous stories during the 18th and 19th centuries. The most common motif of these works was that of the Countess bathing in her victim's blood to retain beauty or youth. So she died in 1614. We know that. The government's going to put a lock on this story. Nobody's going to talk about her, and these records are getting sealed for X amount of time. Question number 12. In what year will her story first appear in print? Joseph, this is your only chance to win. You literally need to guess what year the Elizabeth Bathory story ran in print. I hope you get it. We've had some pretty good ones in season 4. I don't know if you guys have been listening, but we've had some Hail Marys hit probably 2 or 3 times this season so far.
Yeah, you definitely can't count out the long shot on this season.
It's crazy how many are close, even if the long shots don't land.
Yeah.
Okay.
That guy.
Joseph says 1702. Alex said 1990?
That's what I put.
1990.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Joseph, you were so close, yet so far away. The legend appeared in print for the first time in 1729 in the Jesuit Scholar.
See, my brain should have put these guys that way.
So you will get 250 points. Save face a little here, guy. Don't worry. There's one more question. Greg, did you see what my side story is? Don't look if you haven't. Don't look. Yeah, don't look.
Now I want to look.
Don't look. Don't look.
I've just been scrolling down
And just with me?
Yeah.
Good. Don't go down anymore. Okay, so 1729, 250 points, Joseph. It's 1250 to 2000. You can't win anymore. Congratulations, Alex. You are the victor. To the victor goes the spoils.
Thank you.
Nothing. So the story came into question in 1817 when witness accounts, which had surfaced in 1765, were published for the first time. They included no references to bloodbaths. In this Hungary and Transylvania, published in 1850, John Paget describes or Paget, I don't know, I was trying to be fancy. Don't try to church it up, boy.
I was just going to say that, damn you.
Describes the supposed origins of Bathory's blood bathing, although his tale seems to be fictionalized recitation of oral history from the area. It is difficult to know how accurate this account of events is, but sadistic pleasure is considered a far more plausible motive for Elizabeth Bathory's crimes. So yeah, man, that's fucking Elizabeth Bathory, dude. That's everything. I got one more little story for you guys. Just an article, actually, but there's a question that is going to lead into it. So you can't win, Joseph, but you can bring it to within 500 points if you get this. Nobody wants a blowout on the record. Question number 13. What is this story about? Is it A, the Chupacabra, B, murder of an entire family. C, alien abduction. Or D, missing hiker found murdered. The only reason I got so excited about telling you and not to look was that it was already done.
Oh, it's up here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So they both say missing hiker found murdered. I thought it would totally give it away that I told Greg not to look at it. This story is about an alien abduction. The only reason I got excited to tell Greg not to look was because Alex already had it in the bag. So I was like, all right, dude, don't fucking go, don't go down anymore. Don't go down. Okay. So Greg, I don't know if you've heard of this story. I know you've heard a lot of them, but there's a lot of abduction stories out there. So much content.
What?
So I've been really hitting the morbidology. I love this site. Emily Thompson writes like pretty much every one of the articles. So this one is shout out to her, Emily Thompson, morbidology.com. The article is called The A70 Alien Abduction.
I don't know that I've heard of this.
Okay, fuck yeah, man. So this one you're going to have to dive into a little deeper if you want a lot of the info. I'm just reading her article of kind of the main events. So, again, this is Emily Thompson, morbidology.com, the A70 Alien Abduction. This is her article, word for word. Alien abductions refers to subjectively real memories of being taken secretly against one's wills by apparently non-human entities and subjected to complex physical and psychological procedures. Due to the lack of objective physical evidence, abduction claims are often fobbed off by scientists and mental health professionals alike. The very first documented alien abduction claim took place in 1961 when Betty and Barney Hill reported that they were abducted. Greg has covered this thoroughly, I think maybe even twice on the show. I think we delved into it a little
pretty
deep.
sure I'm pretty sure I've done it.
One of my favorite stories, incredibly similar, Greg, this story. Since then, there have been numerous claims, some of which are more believable than others. One of the most infamous cases alleged alien abduction took place in the outskirts of Edinburgh in the 17th of August of 1992. 33-year-old Gary Wood, an ambulance technician, was driving to Tarbrax, that's probably wrong too, South Lancashire, and his friend 25-year-old Colin Wright. As they were driving along the A70 at approximately 10 p.m., something completely unexplainable took place. "What the hell is that?" exclaimed Colin as he gazed up towards the starlit sky. The two men later reported that they noticed two-tiered, disc-shaped black object floating approximately 20 feet in the air just in front of the car. Gary slammed his foot on the accelerator in an attempt to speed past the obscure object. Gary was, quote, driving like a madman, according to Colin. As they passed underneath, a bright light emanated from the UFO. What happened next has been enshrined in the annals of UFO mythology and remains a mystery that has spanned over 25 years. The two men said that they next experienced complete and utter darkness for what felt like a mere couple of seconds. In fact, Gary would later say that he thought he had crashed the car and he was dead. However, when they came to, the car was veering over the road at a rate of knots. They were perplexed and discovered that their car was facing the opposite way, even though they had no recollection of turning the car around. Furthermore, their seatbelts were unfastened and they were shaking uncontrollably. The mysterious object was nowhere to be seen, and the brisk night air was a relief to the perturbed duo. They continued to drive to their friend's house, questioning what they had just experienced. When they arrived, they expected it to be around 10:40 p.m., considering the journey typically took about 30 to 40 minutes. However, when they knocked on the door, nobody answered. Instead, their friend poked his head out the window and asked him what on earth they were doing. It was 12:45 a.m. So they've lost somewhere around 2 hours, right? Is that what I'm...
That's fairly common.
Okay. Over the forthcoming days, Gary and Colin felt completely drained of energy, yet they could not sleep. When they did eventually drift off to sleep, they both experienced extremely vivid and disturbing dreams. In addition, they suffered from severe headaches. Seeking treatment for their ailments, Gary went to the doctor, who did several examinations of him, including an MRI scan and spinal tap, both of which found nothing untoward. Thinking back of what they had experienced on that crisp night, they decided they would contact the British UFO Research Association. So at least they were in the know enough to do that, right?
Yeah, and I have heard this story.
Okay.
I didn't remember the name of it when you said it, but when you were talking about how they lost a couple hours and they were all turned around on the road and stuff, I was like, yeah.
You're in it. So what they had witnessed was an unidentified flying object. After all, and now they were experiencing inscrutable symptoms. At the recommendation of the strange phenomena investigators, Gary and Colin underwent hypnotic regression in an attempt to retrieve missing time and uncover what have taken place during those missing 2 hours. Now, I don't know how you felt about the movie The Fourth Kind, which is pretty much based on hypnotic regression, right?
Right. Which I mean
I personally love that
I
movie.
liked that movie a lot.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, hypnotic regression's like totally viable as far as using it to uncover suppressed memories and stuff. So I'm for it.
Yeah. Every time I hear about it, I am instantly think of that movie. And I really like
The owls.
Yeah.
I
Really
fucking
like.
hate it when movies like try to play themselves off like documentaries though, like Blair Witch
Yeah.
did.
I don't hate that. Found footage is dope, even though that's not necessarily found footage.
It's like the opposite
Right,
of a
but like they
mockumentary.
were like, oh yeah, it's spliced in with all the original footage from the, but it wasn't.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot.
You remember,
There's
you know,
like-
like that's
yeah.
that was my beef
Yeah.
with that movie. Other than that, like I mean, the plot's fine.
I did forget about that, but all of that fake found footage was freaky as
When
fuck.
at the end part when like
Yeah.
she's all like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly that.
right, Greg?
NDP voice.
I'm like, back me up here.
Yeah, I got you. You got it.
Are you the lead singer of Disturbed?
Or are you choking on something?
Is he okay? International sign for joking. Okay, so during the very first session, Gary burst into tears and was inconsolable for most of his session. As the sessions went on, Gary and Colin recalled more of what had taken place during their lost time. Both men remembered that they were sitting in the car when 3 humanoid creatures opened the car door. Colin recollected Gary being placed onto a stretcher which was floating in midair. I saw 3 creatures coming towards my car. I felt intense pain, like an electric shock. Then I was in some room and I saw these like wee men moving about, doing something to me. Then this 6-foot creature approached. Gary would later reminisce. Colin recalled being led through a circular corridor by one of the creatures. Once at the end of the corridor, he entered the featureless room where he was stripped naked and subjected to non-intrusive examination. While his memory was hazy and portions were missing, he said he could remember being naked inside a glass or perspex container with his ankles strapped in. From this clear container, he could see other naked men and women in the same predicament.
That's pretty intense. Like that's a rough feeling, I can imagine.
Is it scarier or less scary when you look around and see a bunch of other humans also strapped in?
Always scarier.
Really?
I would think scarier, yeah, because you realize you're not special. Like if you were the only one on the craft, you'd be like they kind of need you because they've got you. You're the only one.
Yeah, I see.
But if you look around and there's 100 other people, you
If
ain't
this
that
were the
special,
movie,
dude.
that's where the credits hit. Like he gets abducted and like, holy shit, and like he get like, and he looks and it's just like,
the lights come on.
yeah, it just shows all. Of
I
them.
think they did that in Resident Evil when they were cloning Alice a bunch.
Well, there you go. So he's in the clear container. His memory is hazy. Portions are missing. He said he would remember being naked inside the container. He said that the room that they were in was filled with some type of fog, and some device seemed to be scanning them and those around him. Gary's recollection of the events was strikingly similar to Colin's. He too recalled being in the featureless room. He said that he was lying on a flat table and was unable to move. However, he wasn't strapped down. Both men recollected on how they saw smaller humanoid creatures inside the UFO and heard agonizing screams from the other patients surrounding them. As they both detailed what they experienced, they became extremely shaky and often cried as they recalled the disturbing experience. They spoke of one taller humanoid creature that seemed to oversee the entire ceremony. This is the 6-foot one that Colin talked about.
Tall grays.
Yeah, and what are the other ones? Zeta Reticuli, or are they
Small
just
grays.
Small grays. They smoked a taller humanoid creature oversee the entire ceremony. The most chilling thing Gary remembered, however, was the taller humanoid creature telepathically telling him. This is the last line, and we're done. But it's kind of fucking freaky. The creature told him, "We're here already, and we are coming here."
Okay. See, that is that ties into like I know I've tried to talk about it a couple of times and it didn't quite work out, and I may have actually said something about it before. But the Coronado group abduction, one of them got abducted, and he saw his friend on the ship, and his friend's yelling and like ah ah yeah, and like all this shit. And he was like, whoa, what's going on with him? And they were like, that doesn't concern you. That's his purpose. Your purpose is here. Focus. And like,
I see.
later on, his friend was like, yo, dude, they fucking probed the shit out of me. And they like, it was awful. I got these marks on my dick and you got to like, and he was like, that they told me that was your purpose, man. Like, it just made me think of that. Like when they said they could hear people screaming in the background, but they like, it wasn't happening to them.
They were just like being observed.
Right. Like that was their purpose. They were the control.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So that's the A-70 abduction. You guys got some Elizabeth Bathory. You got a little bit of moon landing. We got a little bit of everything in this episode, guys. 1560s, some abductions, some moon landing, maybe.
Quote unquote.
Anything you guys want to share, throw out here at the end? What do you got, Alex?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram, guys. I just graduated. I'm gonna start taking photos again. If you guys follow me from the podcast, because I know some of you guys have, let me know. Like, comment on something. Just be like, hey, listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
You know,
let them know, y'all. So that way we know where you guys are going. We can keep track of you at all times.
I like kind of guess, and I'll like send something to Jesse. I'm like, hey, I think this chick's from your podcast,
and I'll be like, can confirm.
But yeah, give me a follow, guys.
Yeah,
it's Mocha Freeman, Mocha like the coffee, Freeman like Morgan Freeman.
Holler at him, Joseph.
That was much more words that I had planned. Follow me on Instagram as well. I'm still in school, so I have nothing fun going on. But yeah, I'm nice. You can talk to me if you'd like.
JXEXPH. You guys know the deal. It's like Joseph.
But talk to me. I'm pretty nice.
He's not.
I'm pretty nice.
Allegedly.
It's proven.
All right. Hella Greg, what would you like to tell the world before we finish episode 92?
At Hella Greg on all your social medias. If you don't find me at Hella Greg, I'm not there. That's it. That's all I got.
Simple, fun, wonderful. I fucking love it.
Less words than Joseph.
You're still going.
Congratulations to Alex for his victory. Sorry, Joseph, that you could not win. I'll get you a solo show where Alex isn't here sometimes, so maybe you have a chance. Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 92 of the Serial Chillers podcast. And remember, don't talk to strangers.
Thank you. Have a wonderful time.
This has been another presentation from Super Network.